Today we are reviewing two pumps, one brand, and one of these pumps just happens to be the pump I want to use for every future birth I ever have, whereas the other one is my absolute nemesis and I never want to see this pump again after this video. So let's get into it. Why do I love one pump? Why do I hate the other? I'm not here to bash the pump that I hate. I really want to give you an honest review of all the pros and cons in both pumps, how they're the same, how they're different, and let you come to your decision. When I was a new mom, I was desperate for information on things like breast pumps. I didn't know anything about breastfeeding, exclusively pumping, or breast pumping in general, and I was just taking in a ton of information. I was trying to listen to all the experts and do the right thing, and I ended up buying my first pump, which was the Spectra 1, I believe, which is the blue pump that's rechargeable, and it's highly recommended. It's a hospital grade pump, and I didn't love it. I actually ended up exclusively pumping for 14 months, and I did survive, which is why I'm kind of obsessed with breast pumping and all the information nowadays. But that being said, if I did not try other options other than the Spectra 1, I don't think I would have been able to exclusively pump as long as I did, because that pump just was not right for me, my lifestyle, and what I was trying to do with it. So today I want to talk to you about MOMMED pumps, because finding these pumps changed the game for me and made it so that I was actually able to pump all the time. And one of these pumps, like I said, I absolutely love. So I really want to talk it up and tell you everything that's amazing about it and why you might want to consider it and why you might not want to buy the alternative MOMMED pump, which is slightly cheaper. The prices on these pumps fluctuate. When I bought it, I believe this one was about $60 for two, and then this one was about $100 for two. Sometimes it's a little bit more, but they're generally about $40 difference in price. That being said, the benefits I get from this pump specifically are leaps and bounds over $40. Money should not be the deciding factor here, because it was at one point, which is why I went ahead and gave this one a try, because I love MOMMED so much. I needed a new pump because this one was dying out. I genuinely think I killed this thing because I just used it to death. I used it more than it's capable of. I'll get into that. Then I switched over to this pump when this one gave out, because I figured MOMMED is already so amazing. This one's slightly cheaper, kind of interested in what the differences are, and so I decided to give it a go. Let me tell you all the things I love about this pump, the few things that I love about this pump, and what their differences are, because honestly, maybe this pump is better for you. If you've used one of these pumps, please share below what you've loved and hated about both pumps, so that we can give people that are interested in them as much information as possible. Because like I said, when I was a new mom, before I had a baby, before I started all of this, I had no idea what I was looking for, and any information would have helped. And that's why I think it is important for moms that may not be experts like me. I'm just a new mom, and I did pump for 14 months, so I feel like I am a little bit of an expert now. But I feel like us just giving genuine, honest reviews is even more helpful than experts sometimes, because sometimes they get bogged down in what is technically the safest, most effective thing for you to do. And that's what I was following originally when I went with the Spectra 1. It's the safest, most effective, it's gonna least affect your milk supply, and just overall is the best rated pump. But that doesn't mean lifestyle wise it's the best fit for everybody. So let's get into wearable pumps, specifically by MOMMED. So this is the MOMMED S10 pump, and this is the MOMMED S21 pump. Just going off of looks, this one is more compact, completely rounded, fits in your bra, nothing poking out, and cups onto the breast really easily. This one is obviously going to stick out of your bra because the motor mechanism is on top, and the tank that holds the milk is a lot more rounded. When you actually are setting these down, this one has to sit up like this. It sets on the table perfectly. This one is totally rounded. It can't set like this, but it has a flat base here, so you lay it flat. Just so you know, I think this is only on older models. They fixed this part, but mine has a hole in the top of it, so you could never lay it like this. It doesn't have a flat part here. But if you did lay it like this, it would leak out everywhere. So just to know, we'll get to that later. Just in regards to how they're shaped, I do prefer this one. Kind of can tell just from looking at it, this one seems like the preferable option just because, like I said, it doesn't poke out of your bra or anything. It's really compact. I just checked the size of the tanks. I always thought that this tank was slightly bigger because it does have the motor completely on top, and I feel like it does hold slightly more milk, but they both have the same measurements on the side, which says that it holds up to 6 ounces of milk, which is actually larger than the bottles that are provided with the Spectra 1. So they do hold a lot of milk, both of them. I don't have to keep holding it in your face the whole time. I actually only had a problem with this overflowing a couple of times, and the only times it would happen was when I first started skipping my nighttime pump, and then I would pump in the morning. I would get a huge milk supply in the morning when I first did that switch. Obviously my body was not used to missing a pump, so it was producing double the milk at first. So I would just, all of a sudden I would feel it overflowing, and I would have to quickly take them off, empty them, and then put them back on and see if I could pump out a little more milk. But that didn't happen that often, and it's also very obvious when it happens, so it's not the end of the world. There's milk leaking, quickly get that off and empty it. But I feel like it's important to note, like, I would not get something with a bigger tank than 6 ounces because this already feels pretty large. When it's inside my bra, it makes your chest a completely different size already. Anything bigger would have been harder to wear when you're like living your life. It would be more cumbersome. It would get in the way. So 6 ounces is amazing. Now, while we're talking about the shape and how they fit in the bra and how big their tanks are, I don't know what that's called. Sorry, I'm calling it a tank. Let me know down below what I'm supposed to be calling that. The milk reservoir? I don't know. When we're talking about the shape of them, I want to also touch on how the shape affects how you are able to latch this onto your breast and get a really good flow going. So I found that with the S21, I had such a good latch so easily. It does come with, what is this called? Is this a flange? I believe this is. It's like the one term I know. So it does come with flanges. Does it say on here what size it is? It does come with a 24 millimeter, I think it's millimeters, flange that you can stick inside. And I think if you don't put it in, it's 26 millimeters, like naturally. And you can also buy different flanges if you need a smaller one, because we're all different. And also, I would like to know, because I didn't realize this originally, and it's really interesting to me looking back at the box, because I did save the boxes, that it came with a guide. When I got the second pump, I was like so excited for this guide, and then I actually found it in the box of my first pump and was like, oh my gosh, because I bought one of these guides, and it's a nipple measuring guide so that you can make sure that you're using the correct flange. And so it's just good to know that it actually does come with it. So if you're having pain or you're not getting a good flow and you just feel like you're not getting, like you're not fully emptying the breast and using up your full milk supply, and you're worried about, decreasing your supply accidentally by, the pump not working properly, definitely measure your nipple and figure out what size flange you need. So easy. You can get different sizes on Amazon. I've done it. I think I had to do it for my Spectra 1 because these ones on the S21 actually fit me so perfectly. The S10, on the other hand, I don't know if I never got the proper flange fit. I actually use a smaller one in it. I use the S21, or the S21. I use the 21mm flange in this one because that's how I was getting the best milk output, and you can just tell like it's not comfortable when you have the wrong size in. It might even hurt. With this one, I just wasn't getting good output a lot of times, and there was a couple of reasons for that. One, there's a possibility that I didn't get the right flange to work for it. I believe I did, because this was the most comfortable fit. I tried multiple sizes. With this pump, it actually came with 3 different size flanges, which is absolutely amazing because, like I said, we're all different, and that way you can actually try different sizes and figure it out. This one only came with 1, but at the same time, this one worked for me right off the bat, and I always had good milk output with this one. Like, the reason I actually switched to using this one pretty much 100% of the time at about 1 month postpartum, for the next 9 months, this was my go-to pump. I only used the Spectra one when this one wasn't clean and I didn't have the energy to clean it. That being said, this one, as far as flange size goes and stuff like that, and the shape of it, putting it in my bra, getting it to match up with my breast, it was all just like effortless. Like, it just worked. I put it in my bra and it worked. And if my bra, like, your boobs like end up decreasing in size and stuff like that, when that happened and my bras became looser, or if I was lazy and I tried to pump with like a workout bra on or something so it was super tight, I would notice decrease in milk output from that. But that was all based on bra fit. As long as my bra was fitting and it was keeping it secure, like I had a well-fitting bra that was holding this securely in place. It wasn't super compressed, it wasn't loose. I would get such good milk output and didn't even have to think twice about it. Didn't have to fuss with this. It was great. I loved it. Now, as far as the shape of this one, like I said, the flange, not ideal, because I did have to try multiple sizes and I still wasn't sure. I still am not sure today if I was using the proper size, because it is different than this one and this one worked so great. But when I used this size flange in this one, I wasn't having the best output, so I don't know. But on top of that, I just felt like maybe the shape of this, or how heavy this is on top, something was affecting my ability to consistently get good milk output. And I think it's also maybe because this being on top makes it harder to like see down there to see if the milk is actually coming out, because that is one of the reasons why experts do not push wearable pumps as your main pump when you are exclusively pumping or pumping in general breast milk, because you can't see when your bra is on. I used exclusively nursing bras or breast pumping bras when I was pumping. That's how I felt the most secure. I felt like it was holding the pump, it wasn't too tight, all that stuff, like I said, and I was getting the best output. So those were the type of bras I always used, and when those are on, they're pretty covered up, so you cannot see if milk is coming out generally. So especially with this one, with this thing being on top. On top of that, this little thing, let's talk about this for a second. How these pumps connect. You just have like a circle here, and inside this circle part, just to show you how this works, this all comes out. This all has to be put together properly for it to fully work and function. There's this little part here that gets added, and then you put this here. There's a hole in the top. This has to all be perfectly in place, and then you stick this round surface in here, and you have to push in really hard to make sure it's really flush. Otherwise, the pump is not gonna get like the proper amount of pressure or something, and it's just not gonna work. It's not gonna pull any milk out. So the fact that I couldn't really see what was going on in there, and I feel like I had to line it up perfectly in the flange, but I wasn't sometimes. And then other times when I was, I thought that this was all pushed together properly, and it wouldn't be. And then I kept checking the directions because I was having a lot of trouble with this pump. I read in the directions that you have to make sure that this part right here is not upside down, because if it's upside down, you're also not going to get any milk output. I can't figure out what is right side up and what is upside down, I feel like, because half the time I'm not getting milk output, and there's so many elements that could be wrong, and there's arrows to guide you like where exactly it lines up, but the arrows are on both sides, so it doesn't matter if I have it there or I have it there. Neither way looks upside down to me. I can't really tell the difference. Let me know down below if I'm crazy. Actually, now as I do it, like, it looks totally different. Wait, this is one way, and then this is the other way. It's like very subtle. Wait, is there a difference? I'm going crazy. I don't know. But you have to line up these arrows, and even when I would do that, even when I would make sure this is like all perfectly put together and it's pressed up in there and it's lined up on the back, because there's this little place where you line it up on the back. It feels like there's way more parts for this one. And I put this in, half the time it would not work. And when I say it doesn't work, what happens is when one of your pumps doesn't work, I would always do 2 breaths at once because I exclusively pumped. If you are still breastfeeding, or in the beginning when I was still breastfeeding, a common thing to do is feed the baby on one side and then pump on the other side. So in the very beginning, I would do that, but generally most of my 14 months was doing both sides. So you put both sides in, you turn both pumps on, you go about your business for about 10, 15, 30 minutes, whatever you end up pumping for, whatever works for you. For me, my average was about 15, 20 minutes always, right? So you pump that whole time, and then you're like, oh, time's up. On this one, it's amazing because it actually tells you how long you've been pumping. So when I would see, okay, it's been 20 minutes, and I feel like you can kind of tell how your nipples and breasts feel when you have pumped enough milk, especially when you've been doing it 14 months, you're like, I'm good now. So anyways, whenever I felt like I was done, I would take them out. This one actually tells you how long you've been pumping, so if you want to stick to a certain time, it will tell you. It also uses this display to tell you the settings, which is also very nice. You can change the settings over here, which you do when you're pumping. Look into this. I could go into it in a different video, but there is different settings that you would set it to. You don't usually keep it at one setting for the entire pump session. There's like an expression, I think it's called, type of setting that you have in the very beginning that just gets the milk coming out, and then there's a different setting you put it in for the remainder of the pump. So the first setting is usually only for like 2 minutes, and then you switch. So that would all happen right here, and the intensity of the settings would also happen over here. Quick little tip I'm going to add in besides that really quick. This has nothing to do with this video, but I just want you to know it. Don't think that you need to blast yourself with the most intense setting to get the most milk out. I would highly recommend you check out Dr. B. Workman's video on breast pumping, because I think she's the one that talks about this, and she's really knowledgeable, and it's just like mostly from her personal experience as well. But she talks about, I believe, the settings. I think she's talking about it on the Spectra, but all of that knowledge that I gained from the Spectra and from videos like hers also works with this one. So she talks about how you don't need to do the most intense setting. Usually like a lower medium setting will actually get the most milk output, and it will stop you from hurting your nipples, especially in the beginning. You don't want blebs, people. If you've never breast pumped before, you do not want blebs. Look it up, or don't, because it's exactly what it sounds like. I'm not kidding you. And it's horrible. It's not actually as horrible as it looks. It doesn't like necessarily always hurt, but it's not pleasant. So I would highly recommend, I've learned the hard way and through hearing out other people, that a medium setting is amazing, and you will get just as much, if not better, milk output, and you'll be able to pump longer because it's less uncomfortable, and it saves your nipples. So just so you know. throwing that out there. Now, what was I talking about again? I kind of got off topic. Oh, so that's all the reasons why this pump has kind of ruined my life a little bit or at least my life during my pumping journey, is that you would put the pump in. I totally sidetracked and I don't think I even finished what I was saying. Once you pump for the 30 minutes and you go to take your pump out, totally thinking that you were pumping on both sides, you felt something on both sides, especially with this pump. This pump, I was more so able to just out of the feel on my nipples, I could tell whether I was properly latched or not. For whatever reason, the way this one fit, I felt like I could tell more. This one, it was a surprise. Every time I would pull, not every time I pumped did this happen, but every time that it did, I was like so disappointed. So you pull them out and you're expecting to have it however full, depending on how long where you are in your journey of breast pumping is how full it's going to be. So say I normally would be pumping about 4 ounces every session that I pump, or at that time of day when I pump. I pull out one side and it has 4 ounces. I pull out the other side that wasn't properly connected or aligned perfectly, or this little thing was not like pushed in. Like I felt like I had to break it to push this in properly. Yeah, this side would be empty, which would mean that because I don't know what part of the process I messed up, I would have to take this pump out that was and empty it because it has 4 ounces in it, and then put it in this side, and I'd have to re-pump on this side for another 20 minutes, which is not great for your nipples either, because even though it wasn't like actually pumping the milk out, it was definitely irritating my nipple because I was feeling something. So that would always be super disappointing, especially because at certain points in your breast pumping journey, you are pumping so frequently that to just lose out on 20 minutes of not pumping or have to pump an extra 20 minutes is so heartbreaking and just draining, because the whole process of pumping is so draining. I'm gonna be honest with you here. If you are a new mom or new mom to be, do everything humanly possible. If you want to feed your baby breast milk, do everything humanly possible to be able to breastfeed your baby as much and as often as you can, and have pumping be the secondary thing. Now, if you are going back to work or whatever your situation may be, or you just can't, and whatever your situation is, if you want to exclusively pump, go for it. But from my experience pumping 14 months, it is awful. It is very hard. There are, of course, some perks because other people can feed your baby sometimes, which can be a little bit of a break, and don't ever have to have like worries about modesty or whatever, because it's, can be done very discreetly all over the place, wherever you are, whatever. It's, there's that benefit. But in general, if I have a second baby, I really would try even harder. Not that I didn't try to breastfeed, but I feel like because I felt such a relief, because breastfeeding was so hard for us in the beginning, I felt such a relief mentally when I switched to exclusively pumping in the beginning, that I just leaned into that. But long term, exclusively pumping is so draining, so much more than breastfeeding long term, because you have all the negative effects of bottle feeding, which is that you have tons and tons of dishes, on top of the fact that you also have the time that it takes to breastfeed. So you are literally pumping like you would breastfeed all that time, and then you are going and feeding your baby if you're by yourself with your baby, and then you're also having to do the cleanup that comes with bottle feeding. So it's just a lot of time. All types of feeding have their positives and negatives, so whichever one you choose is perfectly fine. I just want to put out there that even though I am obsessed with exclusively pumping, and I want to share this information, that wouldn't be my go-to every time. And I just, as someone who was recently a first-time mom, is still a first-time mom, but like, but was just recently in this stage, I just want to share that, like, make sure you have all your options, because once you get away from breastfeeding, like, for a certain length of time, it's really hard to go back. And I did try to go back a couple times, but we were just so into the bottle feeding at that point. It was just, we just went this route. But there's, like I said, there's pros and cons. So just throwing that out there. Okay, off of that tangent, and all that heartbreak from when the pump is empty, the next thing I want to talk about is these little LED displays. So one benefit I said about this one is it does say the time on it, like how long you've been pumping, which when you have that breastfeeding brain and that mom brain mixing together, you need this time on here, because I can't remember to set an alarm. I don't want to set an alarm, and I don't remember to check the clock, and I don't know how long I've been pumping. So when I'm using this pump, which does not tell me the time, I'm guessing. Now, the only thing that saves this pump is it does have an automatic shut off, but it shuts off, I believe, at 30 minutes, and my pump sessions would generally be ideally 15 to 20 minutes. So I'm clearly going way over the amount that I would ideally like to pump if this is automatically shutting off. But sometimes that happens because you just get distracted and you forget how long you've been pumping for. What this screen is for on this one specifically is it shows the type of pump you are doing. Like I said, there's the expression pump, and then there's also the other I don't know what's called, but the other pump which you would do for a longer length of time. And you can toggle between the two types of pumps, and then there's like, I think like 9 intensity levels that you can do for each pump. And so both of those have this feature. And then I also think both of these pumps, but I have not used this feature with this one. I've only used it with this one, but it was absolutely amazing and game-changing, is that it has like a feature where you can actually train your device how you want to pump. So the first time, or one of the first times I used this pump, I actually set up this thing where it would like train the device what I wanted. So whatever settings I clicked, it remembered it. And then the next time I went to pump, I just had to click on like one button, like I hit the power button, and when it started, it remembered the settings I liked, and it automatically would do that setting, that like change of settings every few minutes, like whenever I wanted it to change. It remembered it from the first time, like the exact amount of minutes to do each setting and each intensity. So like one of the settings I had slowly changed this intensity until it got to the top intensity that I wanted, which was like 4 or something. It remembered it. So every time for the next that I use this pump for the next 9 months, I didn't have to play with the settings, unless, you know, once in a while you're tender or something's going on and you have to do something differently. But generally, I just hit that, set it, like pre-saved settings, did it for me. It was absolutely amazing, and I'm pretty sure that this one can do the same thing. I just didn't set it up because I hated this pump. One of the last things I want to talk about in regards to these two pumps is the noise they make, because all breast pumps are gonna make sound. And if you're watching a lot of videos like this that are telling you about different breast pumps and what your options are, or if you're reading reviews on Amazon, I bought both my pumps on Amazon, a common thing that you will hear and see is that certain pumps are quieter, or this is a super quiet pump, this one is a louder pump, or whatever it may be. I have experience with these two MOMMED pumps, a manual pump, and my Spectra 1 pump. I am going to be as open and honest with you about the sound of these pumps as I can be. These pumps are definitely quieter than the Spectra 1 pump, and they are definitely louder than a manual pump. That being said, all pumps that are not manual make sound. And when people say it's a completely quiet pump, or when people say that a pump is quiet, they don't mean that there's no sound at all. I say that because I don't want to turn you away from a pump because these pumps make noise, because all pumps make noise. But I do want to tell you about the type of noise they make and just give you like a really honest review on it, which I probably can turn it on so that you can see. Let's see if I turn up the intensity, if it's louder. So I don't know if you can hear that. I'm not going to show you the sound on this one. I think this one is slightly, I think they're about the same actually, noise level. This one's a little more, so it might be slightly quieter, but I'm not going to play mine now because this pump is pretty much broken and it is going to sound louder. It's not going to be accurate representation. This is fairly new and barely worn, so it's a good representation. But if you could hear it, I don't know if you're actually going to be able to hear that, but the pumps have like a little bit of a clicking noise and like a small, like a hum to them. And basically what I would say about it is this type of pump, I'm not gonna wear it while I meet clients and like work with people. People are definitely going to notice that there's a noise. I am gonna wear it at like social gatherings at my house or at family and friends' houses, and I'm not gonna really worry about it. And I've worn it in the airport before. I've worn it in the car. I've worn it in the house all the time, with people over, without people over, whatever. It doesn't annoy me, it doesn't bother me. I don't really notice it because I pump so much. I've completely blocked it out. But that being said, people do notice it, and it's usually men, and they usually don't say anything at first, and then all of a sudden they're like, what the heck is that? Because they don't realize that I'm pumping. So that's how discreet these are. Like, they can't tell where that sound is coming from, but they do hear like a little mechanical noise. I even had a friend's husband once ask her if I had a pacemaker because he didn't know that, you know, people can just like pump under their clothes, I guess, or just didn't think about it. And he was sitting next to me and he was like, what the heck is going on? And I have 4 brothers. I've also had them stop in their tracks after like 15 minutes and be like, what is going on? Something is making noise and it's in your vicinity and it's freaking me out. So they're not silent, but also they're not going to like annoy anybody. It's just like if they don't know what it is, it might drive them a little crazy. So maybe tell people if you want to. That being said, I've never used a super expensive wearable pump. I know there's ones on the market that are definitely more expensive than the MOMMED. Like, I think the EV might be $300. Let's even check on this. Like the LV is, I believe, is like $300-$400. So maybe that one is completely silent. I would really only think like at work. If like you're wearing your pump at work, maybe you do need to get a more silent pump because this is definitely not completely silent. But other than that, I feel like it's fine. It never bothered me. Like I said, I've even worn it at the airport, like walking around, and it's been fine. I absolutely love it, and I would not let the sound or the price get in your way. They're pretty much equivalent, so on that topic. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention is actually the one downside to this pump. Only downside, yes, it doesn't say the time on the top, but because this is so discreet compared to this one, I take that. I don't want the time because this one has the time, but it's super chunky. So what is the one thing that killed me about this pump? Well, it has a hole in the top. And before I stop you from wanting to buy this pump, just so you know, I've done my research and I went to look up these pumps recently, and there is actually photos and a disclaimer when you go to purchase it. I'll even insert it here, that show that they fixed this and there is no longer a hole, and if you bend forward, the milk is not just gonna fall out everywhere, because that is the only downside I found to this pump. the only thing I didn't like about it, because when you have a really little baby and she's crying and you're pumping, you probably aren't holding her, because you can hold your baby while you're pumping, but it's like not the most comfortable because you have these big things and you don't want to push into them because you don't want to affect the flow of the milk. So generally she's in her little seat or she's on the ground on her belly doing tummy time or whatever, and she starts crying and you want to console her, you want to pick her up in whatever way you can. Well, you've been pumping for 10 minutes already and you kind of forget, if you're like me, if you have breastfeeding brain or mom brain, all the brains basically lacking, you go to pick her up and you bend over. Even though you've done this before, it's happened to me many times. Go to pick her up. Not only do you lose some of your milk because your milk pours out, almost every single time this has happened, it's because I'm picking up my baby. So my baby is drenched in milk and my milk is wasted. So this little hole sucks. I don't know why they originally had it, but they got rid of it, thank goodness, and you don't have to worry about it anymore. But I just wanted to share that little tidbit because that really did suck, and let me know down below if you also had this experience or if a pump that you've used had this situation going on. Neither of these pumps have that problem anymore. This one this one totally does have a bowl in the top, but it doesn't pour out. Like, I've bent over with it on and it doesn't pour out, but it also does have this whole chunky thing. So they might have just changed something internally that makes it not pour out of the hole in the top, because it definitely says like they fixed this problem. Anyways, that was my last little tangent I wanted to go on about these pumps. I have to say, I absolutely love MOMMED pumps. I specifically love the MOMMED S21 and never want to see the S10 ever again in my life. I'm so glad I filmed this video because now I don't have to look at it ever again. I promise you I won't. Even if I buy a new one of these and it breaks or something, I would rather use my Spectra than this one. I hate it. But yeah, so that is, I think, everything about these pumps that I can at least think of right now. So if you have any further questions, please leave them in the comments below. I would definitely love to answer them. I love talking about this stuff. I don't really have any friends that went through the same journey, so this is my outlet to share this information I've gained. If you are interested in seeing everything that comes with these pumps, they come with a pretty similar amount of accessories. So go ahead and check out my video unboxing the S21 pump right here. Bye guys.